A prolonged Iran war risks an unprecedented crisis in global energy supplies, and that kind of shock could ripple through every major economy, raising costs for households and businesses. Dmitry Zhdanikov is Reuters energy and commodities editor.
We're already in the energy shock. I mean, to put it simple, the world has lost around a quarter of oil that it was getting daily before the war started. So when a quarter of something is not available, I mean, inevitably people will be scrambling to buy more and more oil and products for higher prices. So the shock is already very big.
But some countries are more exposed than others and less able to cushion the blow. In Europe, a fresh energy shock revives painful memories of the surge that followed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Germany's industry-heavy economy has a lot to lose. Its manufacturing sector has only just stopped contracting for the first time since 2022. And as a major exporter, it's vulnerable to any global downturn. Italy also has a big manufacturing base, and oil and gas account for one of the highest shares of primary energy consumption in Europe, making it sensitive to price spikes. Britain's electricity system relies more on gas-fired power than other major European economies, and gas prices, rising faster than oil since the start of the war, often set its electricity costs. Japan is firmly in the firing line. It sources around 95% of its oil from the Middle East, and nearly 90% of that passes through the Strait of Hormuz. A weak yen is already lifting import costs, feeding through to food and daily necessities. Among emerging heavyweights, the Gulf faces a direct hit. Some forecasters now expect contraction this year, reversing pre-war growth hopes. Higher oil and gas prices are no help if the effective closure of Hormuz prevents exports, especially for Kuwait, Qatar and Bahrain. India is another exposed giant. It imports about 90% of its crude and nearly half of its liquefied petroleum gas, with roughly half of its oil and an even larger share of its LPG coming through Hormuz. Economists are trimming growth forecasts, and the rupee has fallen to a record low. Turkey, which borders Iran, is bracing for potential refugee inflows and more geopolitical uncertainty. Economically, its central bank has paused interest rate cuts again and has sold as much as $23 billion in reserves to bolster the lira. Sri Lanka has made every Wednesday a public holiday for state sector workers to cap energy costs. Schools, universities and public institutions are shutting. Non-essential public transport is suspended, and a national fuel pass now restricts fuel purchases. Pakistan, which was on the brink 2 years ago, has raised petrol prices and closed schools for 2 weeks. Government departments have had fuel allowances halved and are barred from buying new air conditioners. Reza Bakir is global head of sovereign advisory services at Alvarez and Massel. He says it's a substantial economic shock to many emerging markets.
Countries that have large petroleum imports, for example, countries like Pakistan, Egypt, have had petroleum import bills last year of more than $10 billion each. Second, countries that have weak external balances, such as they have current account deficits or they don't have very high levels of foreign exchange reserves that can buffer these kinds of shocks.
Energy choke points and rising prices are testing economies worldwide. The longer the conflict persists, the more acute the pressure becomes.